Welcome to another episode of the Lightspeed Investing Podcast. I'm so excited to have Tyler Woods, the head of the CMT Association, dialing in from New York, the city that never sleeps today. How are you doing, Tyler?
I'm doing great, Philip. It's good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you as well, man. So I know you've had a busy day, and I'm super excited because we're gonna talk about the genesis, right? And your journey of how did you become the head of the CMT
Mhm.
and what that journey looks like and what our audience listening in can learn from that journey. So, just to start, did you always envision as a 3, 5, 7 year old that you'd end up in the Big Apple doing what you do now?
Yeah, I can't say that I even knew that there was such a thing as the CMT Association
Right.
until graduate school. Actually, is where I first heard
Uh,
about the organization. But as a little kid, I think I envisioned myself drumming in a global touring rock and roll band,
sure.
or maybe flying planes.
Yeah.
The kinds of stuff kids dream about.
And just so we're all on the same page, right? What exactly is the CMT and what does the CMT mainly do, right, for the audience listening in?
Yeah, CMT stands for Chartered Market Technicians
Mhm.
Association. Not to be confused with certified massage therapists or
Right.
country music television.
Okay.
And it is a globally, headquartered in New York, but it's a global not-for-profit organization that exists to advance the discipline of technical analysis. And we do that in a couple of different ways. We're a member services organization, so folks in 137 countries around the world hold the CMT charter. We do a lot of education publishing. We host a lot of events and virtual education training for and on behalf of our members. But the thing that really has propelled the organization forward over its 50-year history has been the CMT program. So, for folks aspiring to roles in the financial services industry or veteran portfolio managers and institutional strategists, they go through the CMT program, which is 3 levels of very rigorous exams. It's a lot of reading and learning along the way, but both for two reasons, really for career advancement, but also to improve their investment decision making. So that CMT program, there's no time limit, but most people take a couple of years to get through all 3 levels before they become chartered market technicians.
Okay, and what kind of markets are you technicians in specifically? Because obviously you have equities, stocks under
Yeah,
traditional investments, then you have, right, what we specifically do under derivatives and alternative investments like futures,
yeah,
commodity stock options,
yeah.
even other realms like cryptocurrencies and forex, right, foreign exchange. So I'm kind of curious, do you dabble in all of them or?
Yeah, any good technical analysis tool is going to work the exact same way on any liquid, freely traded market on the planet. So it's asset class agnostic, meaning you could be a fixed income portfolio manager of equities only, you could be multi-asset class. Certainly, the cryptocurrency space has attracted a lot of attention, both from retail and institutional investors. And so the concept of using supply and demand relationships in a freely traded market to help you stay on the right side of trends and use some of those statistical probabilities to your advantage. It works the same way on everything, which means you'll find CMT charter holders in every possible asset class and job role in the market.
Gotcha. That's amazing, man. So how long have you been the head of CMT at this point?
So I serve now in the CEO's role, and that started last summer in June.
Okay.
But I've been with the organization for now almost 15 years. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, came in the mailroom and worked my way up,
Really?
so to speak. And the path to working at CMT Association is
Uh,
pretty circuitous. It's not
okay.
a job that's advertised on all of the job
I
boards.
did not think so. I did not think so.
And my educational background, I went to a very great liberal arts college called McAllister in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Yeah.
And then my now wife and I went off to grad school, ended up at a place called Indiana University, the Kelly School of Business, for
Mm.
my MBA, while she was doing her doctorate.
Hoosiers, huh?
Yeah, the Hoosiers. That's right.
Hoosiers. Yeah.
I think it stands for Who's Your Daddy? I think where that word comes from. But great program in both business management and finance. And most of what I learned in my graduate studies was fundamental analysis. So
Ah,
financial statement analysis, managerial accounting and corporate finance.
I'm guessing this was more of an MBA, a master's, not a PhD, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
My wife is the brains of the operation. She came out of there a doctor, and I was still just Mister.
I see. I
But
see.
yes, my MBA program was really grounded in strong fundamental and accounting based
I see.
methodologies for
Mhm.
valuing securities.
Sure.
And I thought that's how the entire investment industry worked. That was
Sure.
the only method by which you would determine your investments that go into your portfolio. And then I moved to New York, and I met a few individuals. Ralph Acampora, whom has been a mentor and an inspiration to so many folks on Wall Street.
Yeah.
He taught for 40 years at the New York Institute of Finance. It's where Wall Street went to learn about market structure and all sorts of topics. But while he was the chief strategist for Prudential Securities, he began traveling the world, and he actually inspired folks all over the globe to understand that if you're doing analysis on the company, you understand the management team and how they allocate capital throughout the firm. You understand the products that are going to deliver future cash flows. You build your DCF statements. You care a lot about margin expansion and return on equity. There are a lot of tools in that fundamental toolkit, but that's analyzing the company. And unless you're a very large private equity firm, you're generally not buying the whole company. You're buying shares of that company.
Yes.
So
Correct.
to have a complete understanding on whether or not an equity investment is suitable, you also have to understand the price at which that share is trading. And you can look to the options market for things like open interest. You could or futures market for open interest. You could be looking at things like supply and demand relationships, not just for that security, but maybe
Mhm.
for the sector, or maybe for equities versus other asset classes. Do investors at large really have an interest in the technology sector right now, and therefore, Apple, or are perhaps they looking for opportunities in other areas of the market like consumer staples and utilities? That lesson from Ralph Acampora and the inspiration that I got first time I visited the New York Stock Exchange and understood, you know, the trading at exchanges, just totally opened my eyes to the fact that there was a whole other discipline to be
Yes.
used to help make informed investment decisions. And I have to say, I was hooked and learned as much as I could. Finally pursued my own CMT, went through the program myself. I
Ah.
didn't get any extra special treatment. Had to sit all three levels of the exam and study like everybody else. And it was a really rewarding experience for a couple of reasons. One, my MBA program was 2 years, and the CMT program was about 18 months. I did them in succession. But what I learned over that period was just how broad the field of study is. So I had been using technical analysis in my own work for a while, and I'd been surrounded by some of the greatest technicians on the planet. Folks like Steve Supmeyer and David Lundgren and Bill Kelleher and all the folks that you see on CNBC, Mark Newton, Jay Woods, Katie Stockton, and I got to learn a lot from those people. But when I went through the program, I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't really dove into market cycles and presidential cycles, the business cycle, the liquidity cycle. What happens when central bankers start tightening liquidity, and what does that do to the equity markets? What sort of sectors tend to
Mhm.
outperform in rising interest rate environments, and all the rest of it? It really opened my eyes to just how broad the toolkit was.
And hold on, is this three 18 months or 18 months, three
Total.
tiers? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So the exams are offered twice a year, June and December.
Yeah.
And in 2021, I did June, December, and then sorry, it was 2020. It was the pandemic.
Is this mandatory for someone wanting to be, I guess, internal with the CMT? Like if someone just wanted to get
No.
the knowledge, right, and maybe
Yeah.
apply it for their own self-interest, they certainly can do that as well, right?
Absolutely. The
Okay.
mission of this organization is educating folks on what professional technical analysis looks like.
I
So
see.
the education is open to everyone.
I see.
To, to be a chartered market technician, you have to be a professional in the financial services industry. So there's a work experience requirement.
Uh-huh.
A lot more details on the CMT's website for those who are interested. But there's a ton of free content, webinars and journal articles, and if somebody's just interested in learning, it's a cornucopia. It's a gold mine of
So in terms of your journey then, right? I mean, from really a graduate student, you kind of found your path as soon as you moved to New York, it sounds like, right? How
yeah.
how would you say, well, how much emphasis do you put your current trajectory that you embarked on
Mhm.
by the influence of mentors, and what is your view on mentorship?
Yeah, great question, Philip. During my MBA program, technical analysis as a subject came up only twice.
Yeah.
Once was in a corporate finance class. The professor didn't have a lot of positive things to say. He still thought it was voodoo. And then I took
Really?
yeah, older gentleman and well grounded in his belief in the
Yeah.
fundamentals.
Okay.
Um, but then I took a class that was it was a statistics class, and we did some basic regression modeling, and the professor was a very astute gentleman. Said, for those of you who are interested in all of the stats and data analytics. There's an organization in New York, the Market Technicians Association is what it was called back then, the
Mm-hmm.
MTA. And he said that, you can go do your own research. I'm not here to tell you how to time the stock market. That's not the purpose of this class, but you can go do your own research. And I would say that, throughout, because I was working full time in a management consulting group while doing the MBA, I had a lot of great mentors who really encouraged me to, I guess, one of my favorite quotes came from a boss who said, Tyler, you're not nearly as stupid as you look. As a young recent undergraduate, he sort of inspired me to take myself seriously. And if I wanted to, expand my career horizons and take on new roles, then there were probably some skills that I needed to attain along the way. And he believed that I had the capacity for it, even though at the time there were some dreadlocks on this head, and I didn't wear suits and ties to work every day. But he was a good inspiration. And I'll tell you, when I got to New York, the thing that really struck me was, I could have taken a role on a sales and trading desk, or I could have, been a runner for somebody on the exchange floor. But that would not have given me the access that this not-for-profit did. And when I first joined, the then president of the board of directors was managing director at Fidelity and the research. He was the director of research for the technical group, and he gave me his personal cell phone number. He said, "Dave," or he said, "Tyler, give me a call anytime you need anything. I'm always available." And when I think about, if you're a sales trader and you got the number for a big buy side client, like that's gold. They would never give you their personal cell phone number because they're being harassed all the time by somebody who wants to sell them something. But with the CMT community, it's much more open and generous because it's a really collaborative environment and people really take that mentorship very seriously. So I was a direct beneficiary, I think, of the
Mm.
culture of the organization. And these folks
Yeah.
took me under their wings and taught me everything they know.
Well, obviously you had a 15-year journey within the company, right?
Yep.
So do you mind kind of sharing your growth and
Sure.
what has allowed you to become the head and the CEO today, right? Because
Yeah.
obviously, you don't just walk into that role, you earn it, right?
Yeah.
So kind of
Absolutely.
curious to hear how you
Yeah,
essentially earned
took
your
that
way.
on.
Yeah.
So I would say that the work itself dictated a lot of what I needed to learn. So as I worked with volunteers all over the globe, I got a sense of how different the markets were in different places. What was of greatest importance to folks in Kuala Lumpur was very different from what's most important in Zurich. Um, and yet, technical analysis is a totally universal language. They can both use the same tools, whether you're trading palm oil futures or you're a private banker with a multi-asset class portfolio for your client. Um, and it was in the early years when I was helping establish a number of the chapters that we set up around the world that I got to travel a lot, And I actually credit my undergrad at Macalester College for giving me a lot of exposure to the international development coursework that I did, a lot of international students that attended Macalester. So I felt pretty comfortable walking into an unknown place and meeting people for the first time. And that really helped me understand how the whole industry landscape works. So if you're in, um, you know, trade finance and commercial hedging in the commodities space, you might sit on a desk at Gunvor or Archer Daniel Midland or Cargill, and you're working with a global supply chain and trying to manage the volatility for the firm. Similarly, the folks who are trading futures out of Singapore or Kuala Lumpur, they are trying to attain, some alpha capture, and on behalf of their client or their firm, they're trying to manage volatility. So there's some universal aspects to that. In the US, understanding the relationship between sell side research analysts and their buy side clients was really eye opening, and certainly seeing how much the marketplace has evolved, both in terms of new products, right? The ETF landscape has changed dramatically over the last 15 years, a lot more tactical products. You've got long short, you've got leveraged ETF products. Um, and seeing how financial advisors or independent RIAs are communicating to their clients what their investment process is, how they're using some of these tools, what services they depend on for great data and analytics, good products to put their clients in, for those who are self-directed in the asset management space. And that's what really I think helped me understand pain points or challenges for different members around the world, and how our toolkit and our member network can both support their investment decision making, but also their career aspirations and even their business challenges. I think one of the best things CMT does is connect good people with each other so that they can do some business or help solve a problem. Because it's certainly a puzzle that's never quite solved. Financial markets.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to me like in your 15-year tenure, right, where you have moved up internally within the
Mhm,
CMT, you were able to gain a lot of amass all kinds of knowledge, right,
mhm,
within international trading.
mhm,
And that has now allowed you, I'm sure you probably did some quality work, right, in each respective responsibility to now
mhm,
lead the actual organization. So, but you also mentioned that it's nonprofit. So most CEOs of private sectors or uh, other than nonprofits, right, their main goal is to drive revenue. I'm kind of curious then,
mhm.
for you, if you had to pinpoint one thing, right,
Yep.
what would you say is your ultimate vision and mission every day when you wake up?
Yeah, to advance the discipline of technical analysis. And my board of directors is very mission focused. So the shareholders of our company, if we can call them that, are all of our members. And what we do in terms of advocacy with regulators, with employers, making sure people understand the difference between what these professionals are doing, with a difference between maybe what is out there for free in other channels, is really important work. And I think the organization has thrived on the fact that we all have this shared passion
Uh,
for teaching and educating, and also advocating for the discipline. That professor I mentioned in my MBA program, who thought technical analysis was voodoo. Well, over the last 15 years, we've built an academic partner program. We have 85 colleges and universities, both at the undergraduate and graduate level, who are teaching some of this subject matter to their full-time students. That's a win for us.
yeah.
So the top line revenue matters. We got to keep the lights on. Unlike 501(c)(3) nonprofits in the US, we don't take any charitable donations. We exist off of our operating capital by running the program and expanding the membership services. But every day we come to work just thrilled to try to make another impact on how well the world understands these tools. And
Uh,
honestly, at the end of the day, it's about helping people make better decisions with their portfolios, and really navigate those periods of high volatility like we're experiencing right now.
awesome. Well, that gives me a lot of clarity, and
Yeah.
I appreciate the work that you're doing. My last question to you is obviously in terms of technical analysis, there's, as I mentioned, a lot of different markets to
Yep.
apply it to.
Yep.
What is, if you had to be a little bit selfish here. What is the number one market you like to apply these tools to yourself,
I like to
and
apply
why? And
I like
why?
to apply these tools to steadily upward trending markets.
Uh,
And I'm cheating, not answer your question. To me, U.S. equities have been an outperformer for more than a decade, largely driven by our technology sector. But the times are changing, and so you've got energy markets on the equity side that are looking really good. The financial sector is a great market to be in right now for long-term investors. But I also recognize that even when equity and fixed income trends are both down, as they were in the COVID pandemic, there's a trend somewhere. And you look into the commodities markets or to cryptocurrencies or to even just holding cash and understanding what those currency relationships are is incredibly important. And that intermarket approach, it's part of the CMT curriculum. And I think that being involved in the markets that are trending is
uh,
that's our job, right? If we're trying to capture return, either for ourselves or our clients, you've got to be focused on what trends you want to be participating in. And I thought you were going to ask me about time frame, because that's to each their own. You got to
uh,
know who you are as a trader or investor. For some of the sovereign wealth funds that we work with, like they're looking at monthly charts because they're looking at a 15 to 20-year horizon. So they want to
yeah.
see something that's been basing for years because
Mm,
it's a mean reversion trade for a sovereign wealth fund is the next 10 to 15 years this will probably outperform. Whereas
interesting.
some of the long short equity fund managers, they're in and out the same day,
Right.
maybe a couple days on a trade,
Gotcha.
and that's great. That's what makes a market.
That to me still seems like ages, right? Because we're in and out within minutes. So because we're
Exactly.
more so high frequency traders,
Sure,
half an
sure.
hour to an hour and a half, and
Yeah.
minutes, right? In terms of the one, the two, the three, the five, and
So, Philip, are you
yeah.
mostly scalping, like 1 and 2 minute trades, or would you hold something like a swing trade that was trending for 30 minutes to a couple hours?
We only consider swings for more so stock options and equities. When
Okay,
it comes to futures, which is our main bread and butter, it's very high frequency.
got
So
it,
yeah,
got it,
within we're in and out within minutes. I
got
I
it.
like to uh I like to basically parallel it to performing surgery on the markets, right?
I
That's
love it.
microsurgery specifically. Yeah,
Microsurgery,
yeah,
amazing,
yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah, Tyler, look, pleasure having you on. It was a great learning experience to understand how you got into the CMT to currently lead it and your journey, I suppose now within, right? Those 15
Absolutely.
years. So, thank
Yeah,
you so much for your time. If the audience wanted to get to know you a little bit more, I know you're very big on mentorship, and
yeah.
perhaps if they can learn from you, what is the best way that they can get access and reach out to you?
Absolutely. So, tons of information at cmtassociation.org. If you're interested in learning about technical analysis, you can always reach me directly. I'm on Twitter, T-Bone Pickens. I'm on LinkedIn, Tyler Wood, CMT. Or you can always shoot me an email, tyler@cmtassociation.org.
All righty. Well, hey, if you are a fellow professional on LinkedIn, it's Tyler Woods, and feel free to write him an email for a more one-on-one
Absolutely.
conversation.
Yeah.
Tyler, pleasure meeting you, getting some
Yes.
face time in, and I'm sure I'll see you around, okay?
Absolutely, Philip. Have a great day. I'll
Yeah,
see you soon.
thanks. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
You as well. Take care.